Hey everyone, and welcome to Invisible Walls episode 213 here on GameTrailers.com. We have some huge news to share. Finally, we can tell you that the brand new Game Trailers is launching, and it is launching next Wednesday, June 27th. That's not going to change.
Which year?
This year. Yeah. I realize, we brought this up, what was it, like 3 months ago?
Sure.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff happened. I'm not going to go into all the details about it, but we have, I think it's like 200,000 videos or something that has all that information. We're rebuilding the site from the ground up, by the way. It's not just us reskinning it or us just, changing the look of the site. We started with the infrastructure and rebuilt it. So to those of you who have had issues with our site in the past, we did this for you.
You're lying. We're just
I'm
switching.
not lying.
We're switching to Blogger.
No, here's the thing.
GeoCities.
Here's the thing. I'm the one who has to deal with all the angry people. So if somebody goes to post a blog and it doesn't work, it's Shane's fault. If someone leaves a comment on a video and their comment isn't there, it's Shane's fault. If somebody can't be added to a faction, it's Shane's fault. It's always my fault. So I have personal vested interest in fixing this site once and for all. So that's what we've done. We've built it from the ground up all over again. Consequently, when you first start surfing the site, and everybody should come on Wednesday to check it out, it's going to run a little slow because you are caching all these brand new pages and modules for the first time. The more you use it, the faster the site will get. So please don't freak out on the very first day after you jump around through a few pages. And
we'll just say it's a cloud-based initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we do want to run over some of the big new features for you guys. Obviously, the biggest difference is our home page. Now, truth be told, we've built our name and our brand on having a newest list on our homepage. Basically, a list of things that, as we publish something, it goes live. Well, over time, we've realized that a lot of the videos that we're putting up don't do a ton of traffic, and all they're doing is taking away from the visibility of stuff you guys actually want to see, bumping that stuff to the second and third page. It wasn't working for us, and it wasn't working for you. So now, all the videos on the homepage are going to be hand-selected by folks like Ryan and I. Basically, it's all going to be curated. We're going to make sure that we get all the big stuff in front of you guys at all times. Now, here's the thing. The newest list hasn't gone away. In fact, just for the people, and we know there's a lot of you that really love that part of the site, we have created a brand new sortable video hub. So if you go to the video hub, you'll see the newest list there. Every day it'll be just like the old GT, but if you want, you can go in and select a number of parameters to find exactly what you're looking for right from that hub. So one thing I would say about the new site is the whole thing is about curation. We want to get the big stuff in front of you guys and keep it there so you're not missing the stuff that you want to see. Obviously, we're still being just as thorough as we always have been with our new video hub. We're producing just as many videos as always. Also, another focus is Side Mission, our new news blog. Hopefully you guys have been reading that. It'll have a much bigger space on the home page. Our original shows, which as time goes on, shows like Invisible Walls, Bonus Round, Angry Video Game Nerd, Hey Ash, all that type of stuff. We have built a brand new home for that, and that stuff will be featured on the home page because it is making up a much bigger and bigger portion of our video views over time. So I want to make sure that you guys can get to that. Also, a bigger focus on the games themselves instead of just particular videos. So you'll see at the bottom of the home page, there is a brand new module, basically a power ranking for games that's based on this crazy algorithm we've been working on that basically is a function of how you guys interact with the site, how often you're watching the videos, how much you're commenting on each game. All that will culminate into a final top 10 power listing at the bottom of the site. And then we have new forums.
Oh, well, the AAA game pages.
AAA game pages. Our game pages were a lot like our home page where you go to, say, the page for The Last of Us. And all you'd see is this huge list. In some cases, at the end of a game's development cycle, that list would be like that long. Well, we've trashed all that. The pages for each individual game now are organized. It's sucking the news, the screenshots, all the videos. Basically, everything is organized into kind of a love letter to each particular game, making it easy for you guys to find the latest updates to everything. Another problem we had, obviously, was we produced a new video for a game. After 3 days, it would go down into the list. You had no way of seeing what the newest stuff was. We have fixed a ton of stuff on the new GT. We have lost factions, not a part of the site. maybe we can beg, borrow, and steal and try to get
the
them
message boards
reinstituted.
are better.
Message boards are way better. You guys are going to love those. We built a new calendar tool. There really isn't a good release day calendar on the internet right now, and we realize that because we need to do it for our jobs. So we've created a crazy extensive calendar tool that you'll be able to sort by genre, platform. The dates are going to be up to the date by the day. Anything else that we're missing here, Ryan?
I mean, that's all the big stuff. But
there's
you'll
tons of little
see
things that you'll notice.
things.
We don't want, in fact, we don't want to ruin everything because there is some cool stuff that we've done that you're
We've
only
hidden
going
a
to see.
golden ticket.
I've got the
on one
golden
page.
ticket.
I'm excited the fact that we're getting a new Invisible Walls homepage. I mean,
Yep.
and it's going to be a real hub where you can see lots of stuff, including bios,
Right.
which I think is kind of scary. I can't wait to
Fake
read
bios.
Ryan's bios.
Yeah, yeah. Everything's going to
raised
be
by
more
beavers.
extensive. I think easier to navigate. Our homepage is way less cluttered, a lot more organized. And why we're able to do that organization is because of the way the rest of the site is now structured. So we hope you guys all love it. In fact, for next week's show, we'll do an On the Hook with you guys where you guys ask your questions about the new site, voice your concerns, and we'll answer them right here on the show. So make sure
When
you go.
he says concerns, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to make sure that they don't involve, oh, your site sucks.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Be
Let's
con-
try to be constructive
Be
here.
constructive, and we'll take it from the forums as well as Twitter and
Yeah,
Facebook.
yeah. And keep in mind that we've worked very hard on this for a very long time, so try not to be too mean. Be nice if we got some constructive criticism. Obviously, we want to make the site better. Keep in mind that we've just launched the site, and pretty much every site that just launches has a few issues here and there. So anyway, with that, we'll get on with the show. Very excited to get your feedback because honestly, the folks that watch Invisible Walls are really the core of GT. We know you're the biggest fans of the site, so we want to make sure that you guys absolutely love it. So I think that's it. Wednesday it launches. I'm sure you've seen the messages on the site. Check it out then. All right, so next we're going to run through the news very quickly. Not a ton of big stories this week, but a couple that are definitely making some waves. The first of which, Metal Gear Solid 5 officially announced, although, I mean, it's been announced.
It was Kojima did a interview with a French video game magazine, and he basically confirmed that Metal Gear 5 was in development. He's using the Fox engine.
Did we know that? I feel like I've known that for 2
I think
years now.
you may have known that from like behind
I
the
don't know
scenes
if it was
stuff.
ever
but
like
it's never
officially, like, I
been
don't know if they ever said
confirmed.
5.
Yeah.
You know, one of those things.
Because Revengeance was has been front and center, and I know a lot of people are confused why wasn't it at E3 or whatever.
Well, that was kind of my pick for a game that I thought might show up randomly at E3, and it didn't. So.
But I think it's certainly an interesting tack from Kojima and Konami to announce this in passing almost in an interview, especially when they had their press conference for E3, which obviously went up on GT, and they had a big presence at the show. I'm guessing the only reason they really didn't make a big hoopla about it was because they don't want anything taken away from Revengeance.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're not even developing that game at this point. I just can't understand why they're taking so long. I mean, the game should be out by now, not just announced. So, I mean, we're looking at, what, a 6-year development cycle for that game? I mean,
Well, the big
that's
news
pretty
is that
ridiculous.
Snake is back. I mean, Snake is back in Metal Gear Solid 5, so I'm guessing all the MGS fanboys will be very,
Is it
very
another
happy with that.
prequel? Because that's kind of what happens when you get to the end of the road. It's like, oh, we wrapped up our trilogy, now what are we going to do? I'm looking
gonna
at
clone
you,
him.
Gears.
They're going to clone him.
Isn't he already a clone?
Yeah, I mean,
So he's
I
a
don't even know
clone
if I
of a
can
clone of a
follow anymore
clone.
what
Clone of a clone.
exactly
He's
he
more
is.
solid.
More solid?
He's like a
Less
robotic
liquid.
clone doppelganger. I don't even know what.
He's a soldier.
Yeah, I mean, conceivably, they could just make a robot that looks like Snake, and because the story's so convoluted anyway, like it's like, okay.
It's going to be interesting. So we're already talking about it. People are going to be curious. They want to know what happens to Snake. He's a very beloved character. So we'll see.
Yeah, and so the other big news story, a huge, I guess it's huge, leak regarding the Xbox 720. I think the reporter that reported on it has gone around and kind of said, look, I guess he has a very good source who's been behind the scenes for him with Microsoft for a while, and he's looked at this document, and it looks like all the other internal documents that he's got leaked from Microsoft before. Some of the stuff in it, they talk about smart glass, but this document was from 2010.
Yeah, basically, it's a 56-page document that went up, earlier in the week. And interestingly enough, I mean, even though Microsoft have done their usual, we don't comment on rumor or speculation, they had their lawyers take it down.
It looks legit.
It looks legit. I mean, some people have been saying, oh, either it's a fanboy's PowerPoint wet dream, or it is something, because it's full of marketing speak. I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff in there. They talk about a $299 console that you never have to upgrade the hardware, and then tap into cloud-based gaming. And then they obviously talk about smart glass, which obviously was announced at E3.
But did they actually call it smart glass?
They didn't talk. No,
right?
I mean,
it didn't actually use that marketing.
They
right?
talked about functionality between cell phones
Right.
and tablets.
But it
And this
stands to
was-
reason back
this
in
was
2010 they probably
yeah.
didn't have the final name for it anyway.
Yeah, what I thought was more interesting was the kind of Connect 2 aspect of it, because at that point the Connect 1 wasn't even out. Maybe. Well, I don't know when the document actually was written or supposedly written, allegedly written.
Actually,
but-
Connect was it was Christmas 2010.
It was right around then.
Yeah, so at the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a little interesting that, I'm not that surprised they were possibly already working on a revision, but it's still kind of curious. Because let's be honest, Connect,
No,
not really,
Connect sucks.
not really the potential we were hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just a peripheral to play dance games with at this point. And we'll talk about Steel Battalion here in a little bit.
Is there a more disingenuous marketing phrase on the planet than better with Connect?
Yeah.
I mean, herpes, better with Connect. Maybe. Diarrhea, better with Connect. Maybe. Video games, not so much.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, $299, never have to update. I mean, it sounds
I-
like it's
that
a,
sounds
it
way
sounds
too
like
good to be true.
Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like a really fancy, dumb terminal with cloud computing behind it.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got some onboard storage and some interface options, and if you have to mess around with stuff.
It sounds like it's a cloud machine.
Yeah, I don't think Microsoft are ready to go that way yet. I think that's
Well, yeah, just-
generation after next.
I mean, just like how the PSP Go was too soon to go completely digital,
Well, I mean-
I think we're still a little too far away to go completely cloud. Especially, I mean, it all comes back down to, I know the United States doesn't have bandwidth caps, but most of the world does.
Yeah.
And
well, there are bandwidth
I mean,
caps here.
just
that-
lag
Well, I mean, they
and stuff
also-
like that. Until
yeah.
we get like the FiOS or the real good internet infrastructure, I don't see it being viable. Yes, I realize like iPads have their little apps and everything, but those are still like $2 purchases for the most part.
If it's really a cloud-based system, then why would they show console specs in the same document?
Well, one of the interesting
Reverse
things that
compatibility? I don't know.
was brought up was they mentioned on Live and actually mentioned it as a potential acquisition for Microsoft, which I could see making sense because everybody knows Microsoft has totally given up on PC gaming. They're happy to sell Windows and whatever, but they really don't give a shit about the PC game space anymore. I think this is one of those things. I mean, these documents come out. They're made in 2010, and they're probably been revised 50 times since.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff's going to be accurate. Some of it's not. I'm sure some of it was just theories that maybe they had or ideas that they had. Maybe they created that document for a huge brainstorming session where they start deciding what features they actually want to incorporate into the machine.
Some of it rung true. I mean, obviously the monetization of every single aspect of Xbox. I mean, they're doing that. Microsoft have just signed a deal, I think, with somebody for bigger ads that are going to come on XBLA this year. I mean, I have a big problem with shelling out $50 or $60 a month a year for my Xbox Live membership and still having ads on top of it. I think it's bullshit.
I agree as well. In fact, last night I was watching Pitchfork.tv on Xbox Live, and there are ads running just like the internet before I watch like a music video on Pitchfork.
Something you pay, for a $60 subscription. People will say, "Oh, cable television has that," but honestly,
HBO does it.
Yeah, the channels I pay premium for, they don't.
Yeah. So I think a $300 Xbox 720 would just destroy the market. Imagine Nintendo's horror if the 720 is $300.
Well, it's interesting. I think a gentleman named Pacta on his most recent Pack Attack actually said that there is no chance, in his opinion, of 720 coming out in 2013, which I find interesting. I mean, obviously, I said that they were going to announce it this E3 and it would be out this Christmas. That's been and gone, but I think the Xbox in particular, that hardware is creaking. We've come out of it where Microsoft don't seem to give a shit. They got to have something ready to go for Christmas 2013. I think it would just...
It'll kill everybody.
mess
It'll
for them.
kill us as a gaming website.
It'll push the game. It'll push a lot of people into almost recession mode.
It'll take the industry to the brink, I believe.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as far as money, although the money will suffer. Just mind share, entertainment mind share, being a big story.
We won't see many new IPs, and this is the conversation we've had all along. People are saving a lot of their stuff for the new generation. I still think that next year we will see an Xbox, and I think we will see the high-end PC games we saw at E3, the Watch Dogs, the Star Wars 1313. They will be then confirmed they are coming to, because they're not just going to come to PC.
266, proceed on to Delta Romeo, hold short of Delta taxiway, maintain listening watch. How many vehicles?
All right, so next we're going to talk about a franchise, well, a game, but a franchise that was really, I felt like had a lot of cachet with us and our audience, and that's Steel Battalion. Of course, the first game played with the awesome controller that literally you had to set aside a corner of your game room just to play. But there was something fun about it still, despite the setup woes and everything, of actually maneuvering the levers, and I don't know what it was.
Well, I like that even if you were really bad at the game, you could always flip the little fake glass switch and press the eject button and feel like, well, at least I survived that, because the game had permadeath.
Well, it was every boy's dream. Where it's like, you got to be the tank commander, you got to be the mech commander. You have these big ass things, and it's like, oh, look at all this, and
buttons and switches.
I mean, unfortunately, it cost $3 million to buy
it was
one
really
copy
pricey.
of the game.
But it sold out like instantly. Like it was
because
impossible.
They only made 10 of them.
Yeah. Well, I think they made
I have no clue.
a lot, but they all sold out, so you can't get them anymore. So here we are with the sequel. Instead of releasing this crazy controller or re-releasing it or finding some in warehouses somewhere, they've decided to make
You are
this
the controller.
But you're not. You also have one in your hands.
Yeah.
So now the game plays 100% with Kinect. Here's the other thing I can't figure out is why they wouldn't at least make the controller compatible with the game.
Make a dongle.
Yeah, I mean, all they need is some kind of a converter dongle to make it work. Go into the USB port. You could buy it for $5 or whatever. They pack it in with the game.
Well, my understanding is that you basically have the majority of the stuff with Kinect and Wavy, but you still have to use your controller as well.
Yeah, the Kinect's all just for
basic.
like, it's for like looking. I mean, Chris, you played it, right? It's
Okay.
for like two things, right?
Walking around. First person controls walking around and looking around are all with the controls and firing as well. Everything else, like shifting your weapons or trying to turn into like a sprint mode for your mech, all of that is with the gesture controls, and it's like this top left corner is gonna control like your light switch. So if you want to turn on with night level, turn on your lights. Little things like that, like the equivalent of, say, looking down a scope in any other FPS is pulling down the periscope. So that feels it, but
It's
you
like
know.
little immersive things. Like
Yeah.
it is like what I was talking about with flipping the eject button, but it's with the Kinect and there is no real tangible thing there.
Oh, no.
So I don't know. I think there's a disconnect, and I think it's so funny that I always felt like Microsoft was really paranoid to make controller tandem with Kinect. Like I
Yeah.
thought that was a big no-no. But now we're seeing it, and I was
I
like,
don't think they had a choice with this
well, I
game.
was like, well, this is interesting because I mean, there really isn't much that does it, especially like core games. And now they've done it, and it's a complete disaster.
Well,
Yeah.
you think about it. I mean, I would have liked to seen this game come out as one of the first games maybe that uses the smart glass. Because instead of waving your hand with Kinect, you can use your controller, but you have your little tablet here, so
Totally
you
agree.
can press. You can press all those buttons, because I'm hearing horror stories of like, the mech's been hit. My crew is dying from smoke inhalation. I go to work the vent. I hit the button. It opens it. And then it closes it again. I try and hit it, again. I hit the self-destruct, and it's an automatic death.
Yeah.
I spent 5 minutes trying to switch my weapons from like a heavy fire to a lighter fire, and I ended up doing everything in the cockpit except that.
They also say that you basically have to sit perfectly straight at a 90-degree angle, and if you deviate a little bit this way or a little bit that way, you have to recalibrate.
You don't sit perfectly straight, or?
No, definitely not. My posture is the proof of that.
Maybe it's a secret posture game. Parents should buy it for their kids.
Ryan just gave me an idea. Can we not refer to this, this system as Kinect anymore? Can we call it Disconnect?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I like that. Just Disconnect. I mean, it's such a shame that a game that's like, and having seen Hawken earlier, which is obviously, a mech game, free to play. Obviously, it is on the PC, and the amount, the way they integrate stuff. Admittedly, you have the keyboard. and then have something like Steel Battalion that's crying out for using a bit of noggin and saying, all right, well, look, no matter how much Microsoft is going to pay us to do the Kinect version, let's delay it. Let's go with this smart glass, because Microsoft had to be talking to people about it.
I can't believe how many Kinects they've sold. There are so many suckers out there.
Yeah, but
Well,
what's the
it's-
attach rate with the software? That's what I want to know.
Dance Central and Connect.
Yeah, exactly. It's Dance Central. It's
package.
it's Zumba Dance. I mean, it's the people who bought the Wii balance board.
Yeah.
So, and that's making money. Yeah, you can't blame Microsoft for that. But what you can blame them for is when they try and force this into hardcore games such as Ghost Recon, such as Steel Battalions, such as Mass Effect. I mean, you really don't want to be doing that. And I'm hoping that we will start to see perhaps more casual stuff only on Kinect, and then we'll see the smart glass technology implemented so that we can have some of the really cool stuff working with Mass Effect 4 or whatever we're going to see. And I think that's the future for the hardcore gamer.
Yeah, I feel like the casual consumers in our industry are just stupid. It's like, we told them Kinect
End of
sucked.
segment.
Seriously.
I don't
We
think-
told them Kinect sucks, but they wouldn't listen.
But that's the thing; they don't listen to us. We
But
are not
why?
we're not their target audience. They don't consider themselves.
Where do
perhaps
they go to get
for-
their information? They just buy blindly and they don't do any research?
CNN, Fox,
Why?
NBC, because they don't, they will go to People magazine and see fucking, I don't know, Miley Cyrus shaking her ass with a balance board, and they think, oh, that's good. I mean, and we are no longer
That
the
is
core-
good, by the way. But
Well, now she's legal, it's good. But we're no longer that core focus, for that part of games.
and look, I'm not saying they should come to Game Trailer specifically. I'm saying pretty much this entire industry told everybody that the Kinect was a piece of junk, and nobody listened to any of us.
But they walk into a Best Buy and they hit some balls and they're like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, they have
They
no
buy
frame
it.
of reference. I mean, you look at it.
Or the
it's
dancing games out. One of the
Majority,
dancing games.
maybe women, older people who haven't played games, maybe like the Wii Bowling and the Wii Fit, and now they want to try something different. They're not the ones who are going to buy Steel Battalions. If they are, they're in for a world of hurt. But that's unfortunately that's not. Microsoft has said we are not their core business. They have said that to us until the next console comes out. They're all about entertainment. They're all about mass market. That's what they want, and that's what Kinect brings them.
All right, so next we're going to check out a game that has been getting a ton of love in our Best of E3 awards. It is the free-to-play Hawken, and here to talk to us about it is Jason Hughes, the producer on the game. Jason, welcome to Invisible Walls.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us.
Are you shocked at all the positive feedback you've been getting on the game at E3? Really, kind of the coming out party for the game, right?
There's been the feedback coming off of E3 was unbelievable. So many positive things that people are saying about the game. People are genuinely excited about it, and that makes us really excited. It's sort of now heads down. Let's really deliver on what people are excited about.
Now, this game has had an interesting development cycle. We saw it initially a couple years ago. We were really hyped on the game. We were working with PR, trying to get exclusives for the game. It did really well on the site. And then it just kind of disappeared. And in fact, I think a lot of us maybe assumed it might have been canceled.
Right.
What happened there during that whole kind of period there where it was kind of radio silence?
Well, I think it was what, March of last year, I think, is when that first trailer popped up. And the game was in development a little bit before that. But really, it's a matter of, it was such a small team. I mean, the studio was founded by 4 guys who are unbelievably talented. And for the longest time, it was really 4 or 5 guys up to maybe 9 at the most, up for like for a year working on the game. And it was only sort of the middle to end of last year that momentum really started picking up. I mean, it was a small studio, so there's only so much they could do. Everyone was really focused working on the game. So there wasn't really a lot of time outside of the trailers and the gameplay footage that had been released. There wasn't really a lot of time to focus on some of the PR and actually getting the game out there. So it was, I think, the end of last calendar year, when we started talking about the publishing deal that we had and the direction for the game going to free to play, that I think the momentum really started picking up again.
Now, why was the decision made to make this game free to play? Because I think one thing, as we were deliberating our Best of E3 awards, we kind of sat there and were like, this game looks like a full-priced game. In fact, it looks better than a lot of full-price games. Was it difficult to make that decision, and what kind of led into it?
It's a good question. there are a lot of games coming out right now. There's a lot of great stuff, and free to play is definitely gaining momentum. And it was
Yeah.
there was something that had been talked about for a while, but with the team being so small, we didn't really wasn't really a viable option. There are very few people, and that takes a lot of work to really support that kind of game. But as the popularity that started growing last year, I mean, there's some awesome titles like League of Legends. Those guys are doing great with that business model. We started thinking more about not necessarily as the business model, but building Hawken as a service and something that has a lot of life. It's really difficult, I think, sometimes to launch a brand new IP, especially one that's multiplayer focused. You're worried about, we want people in the lobbies, we want people playing. The last thing you want is for someone to throw down money for a game and then not be able to find a game. And what happens 2 weeks later is everyone moved on to something else.
Right.
I don't know. So
yeah, we talked about multiplayer ghost towns recently, right? In
Yeah.
terms of,
Yeah.
You buy a game and then you're like
There's no one to
a
play
week
with.
later,
There's no one to play with. It
it doesn't hit that
disappears.
threshold. Yeah, there's no one to play with.
And that's a scary thing. You don't want to put all this work into it and then have nobody playing. So free to play definitely helps. People
Right.
can just download the game, start playing, and it actually, free to play, I think, will help to extend the life of the game. We're going to support as long as people want to play it. We have such a wide amount of content that's planned. And we want to build it as a service that people care about and listen to the feedback and balance and just keep adding more stuff to it. So
Right.
I think that actually gives us the ability to be more flexible and build it as something that hopefully will stick around.
Yeah, I mean, I play a ton of League of Legends, love that game, and I think they have the right stance about how they're handling their free-to-play approach with just making the things you do pay for purely cosmetic. Otherwise,
Right.
everything, with an actual gameplay function or anything that impacts balance in some way, like you can
Right.
earn naturally. What are your guys' plans for the cash shop?
Tell us
with
about
Hawken?
your pay to win.
the actual
How can I win harder than the other guy?
Well, we have this one button that you buy and you just automatically win.
It's the win
Sounds
button.
good.
The win button. Pay to win is that's a scary thing, and that's something that that's really difficult to balance, and it's I think what turns people off. I think sometimes to the free to play model, it's a scary thing. It's something we're definitely aware of it, and we want to avoid that. So the trick is just about balance. I mean, we need to generate some income so we can generate additional content. So it becomes, well, how do you balance that with normal progression? You want people who decide to put money on some items to feel that it's worth the money and exciting to do so, but you also want people to not feel cheated if they decide not to.
Right.
All right, I want to unlock items X, Y, and Z, but through normal progression. So how long does it take to unlock that stuff? How long, at what point does it become frustrating or good motivation? So a lot of that is balancing, but we don't want a situation where things become off balance and people are upset that they're, we want people to have fun no matter what. So that's a big thing is we want people to be able to unlock everything on their own so they don't feel frustrated, and then monetization, we just have to to balance basically that to make sure that it feels right regardless of how you want to play.
Now, do you start at like the $60 range and say, now if somebody were to spend that much money on this game, which would be the full price of a game they typically get at retail, are you making sure that they kind of get the kitchen sink at that point if they spent that
Right.
much money?
That's something that we're definitely aware of. You think about, well, how much money are you spending and what are you getting for that? Games out today, you expect a certain amount of content for $60. You expect a certain amount of content for 50, for 40, whatever you're spending on a game. There's something in your mind that says, well, am I feeling like this has good value? So anyone that wants to spend, if someone spends $60 on a game, I fully believe like they should feel like they got $60 worth of stuff. It's something that we're definitely aware of and paying attention to.
Mech games have kind of disappeared over the last 7 or 8 years. It used to be one of the most popular genres in the industry. Certainly used to get a lot of games from Japan in that genre.
Right.
A lot of those games haven't been coming over to the States recently. Why do you think that is, and have you taken that into consideration when building Hawken?
The origins of Hawken, it really became just love mech games, and that was almost part of it. Like I haven't seen one in a while that was really exciting and one that we all wanted to play, especially the founders.
You play
the
Steel Battalion?
Steel Battalion, man, that thing is awesome.
The new one. No, it's not.
Oh, the new one?
Yeah.
I have not played the new one yet. I have not
Don't.
played the new one. But it is funny this year. There's so many that are it's coming back, and there's a lot of really exciting titles that come out. Maybe I don't know. Maybe apparently not. Maybe Steel Battalion, but But that name actually carries a lot of weight. You know, people have a certain expectation. Everyone remembers that awesome controller. That was pretty crazy. But I think that part of that vacuum was part of the motivation. It was a genre that everyone loved, and let's do something. Let's make one that we would want to play ourselves.
And what does that mean as far as one that you want to play yourselves? What were the things you hated about old mech games that you guys have rectified in Hawken?
I think there's definitely a mix, right? If you go back to some of the classics like more MechWarrior 2, like everyone has such fond memories, I think, of MechWarrior 2.
Yeah.
There are some games that came from the West, I think, are definitely more based on the simulation kind of style. It's just a little bit slower. There's a little bit more micromanaging of your mech and your weapons, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've had a lot of fun with that type of game. There's a lot of, you mentioned Japan, there's a lot of games that come out of Japan that are just really frantic and fast-paced and jumping around, Armored Core, that are definitely more sort of that arcadey. So sort of the thought was, well, what happens if you sort of try to find a medium between those? You take some of the customization, you take some of that building your mech and having a connection element to it, and then with maybe some faster paced gameplay over a simulation. You know, what happens if you try to find that in the middle? And that's what we're trying to hit with the game.
Yeah, one thing I found with a lot of mech games is that they're so slow and lumbering that you almost feel at some points in those games that you're just a sitting duck. And I think that's one thing I've seen with Hawken that feels completely different is the speed at which the game is played and how nimble even the larger mechs are. You never feel like you're just stuck at a position and you have no chance to defend yourself.
And that's a tricky thing to balance. You want people to have fun with it. You don't want people to be fighting the controls. But at the same time, you're in a mech. You want that mech feeling, that super powerful feeling of being in something that's heavy and can do a lot of damage. So, we want the gameplay to, there's an idea of what the pace of the game should be, and that's something that we're still balancing. But I think when people get their hands on it and start feeling it, they feel more of the mech feel, I think, when they're playing versus than just watching it. You guys had a chance to get some hands on. How did you feel?
I mean, I totally agree. One thing I liked about just playing it briefly was that movement matters. I think when people play games like Counter-Strike or Modern Warfare, they take what they could do with their kind of line of sight for granted, because you could really kind of play Twitch and look everywhere all at once. But with Hawken, you really feel like you're in the mech. You feel like you're controlling this rotating cockpit that you have to be kind of very wary of where you're looking at all times. And it really lends to the sense of weight and power with each mech class. And I found that I like the light one a lot. Moving around with the thrusters, sniping from afar.
Rocket juice.
Rocket juice.
Tap into the rocket
Lots of rocket juice is very important for my gameplay. But yeah, I thought it was really fun. Like you got to play too, right, Justin?
Yeah, I think the boost mechanics you guys have with the quick lateral movement and the quick turn.
Yeah, the
pretty
dashing
important things,
essentially. Yeah, I really like it.
Okay, cool.
Because it gives you a quick dodge. You feel like you can duck around the corner, or you have
Also the
you have a
180
chance
turn.
to unscrew yourself.
180 turn
if
too.
you,
Yeah, it's really good.
Although sometimes I was trying to boost backwards once, I was like, oops.
Yeah,
I'm getting shot
turn
at.
around.
Yeah. But yeah, some cool movement stuff for sure.
Cool thing. And that was part of that balance between how fast do you actually move, but still being in a mech. It found like, because you don't want it sitting there. It has weight. You don't want to feel like you don't want to watch a mech just kind of speeding zipping around all over the place. It doesn't feel, you lose sort of that weight immersion. So some of that was a creative solution to that issue, where give it that quick dash, give it that quick 180, so you weren't doing this with the mouse to kind of scroll over and get behind you, but give that quick boost to 180 and get by whatever's behind you.
Yeah, I feel like the audio in the game and the angle of being in the cockpit and how you guys affect it with the shaking and things like that, I feel like when you get hit, it has a real solid sense of impact. It's like you don't need someone to tell you got hit. It's like, oh snap, where is this guy taking shots at me from? So I'm really enjoying it. Now, when you guys launch the game, what are you guys targeting to have in the opening package as far as maps and mechs and things like that?
Right. It's going to be spaced out a little bit. We're going to have basically from now until our open beta date, which is in December, is let's just sort of start ramping stuff up. We have to make sure that the game's ready to launch. We have to make sure that everything is as polished as we want it to be. We don't have a list yet of, well, this is what we want here, and this is what we expect in this day. We know, we have a general idea, we're going to have this amount of mechs, we're going to have these amount of weapons, we're going to have these amount of maps. And those are the ones that we feel comfortable in. We have a wide range of maps that we've been working on, for example, but they're all in various stages of polish. I mean, some haven't been touched in a while because we've been focused on other things.
Right.
So it really depends on what we feel is ready to go. So that's not something that that we're locked down. We have our goals on that. We want, definitely for there to be content for people to play with and can, and to stay with it. But we're not going to put anything out that we're not happy with and we're not proud of, especially when it comes to game modes. From my past, I've run into a situation where if you launch sometimes with too many game modes, you fracture the player base. So
Yeah.
even if we just launch for deathmatch, team deathmatch, and siege mode, if we just kind of keep the numbers small for a little while to build that base, then we can start expanding with more maps, with more items. So the community grows, and all of a sudden it's not impossible to find a match.
Well, people have to learn how to play as well.
Right.
And while the controls in this game are crazy intuitive, there are some unique elements to it,
Sure.
like we mentioned, using the shift to dash and things like that. So it's almost a better idea to keep the modes tight, just so people can wrap their heads around actually operating the mechs and not worry so much about the modes and the objectives in
Right.
the game. Sometimes in games when you're trying to figure things out and you have other things you're trying to get sorted, it kind of detracts from the overall experience, and in that case, maybe you guys start leaking users, which is a huge issue for you guys.
Don't want that, and there is a little bit of a learning curve right now, and some of that is.
But slight. I would
deals
say
with
most mech
polish.
games are not that way. They're usually very rigid, very complicated. This one, not so much. It's
Okay.
a nice balance between the two, I think.
Good. That's what we're shooting for. At the same time, we don't want people to feel intimidated about jumping into multiplayer.
Yeah.
So what do we do to try to lower that, to try to level out that learning curve a little bit? So that's all stuff that we're playing with, and it really helps to have feedback. PAX East was the first time we had that small, we had a really small, just fan kind of event where we had people, just the public, come in, try the game out. I mean, I was there. I wanted to see feedback. I had forums. Like I wanted to hear what people had to say, so we could take that back and know it was the first time that people had really had a chance to play, and so that's invaluable. And same thing with E3, like the comments that we're getting back, like that's invaluable, so that people sitting down for the first time, have never played it, what is their experience like, and how can we help make that less confusing or feel a little better. And so not only for getting the game out there and having people see it, but also just how do they feel about it, and how does it play for them. That's invaluable to us.
Now, has the game ever had a single-player campaign? Did you guys even approach doing one? And because there isn't one, how will people learn how to play the game? Is there a tutorial? How does that work?
So that's part of like the learning curve. We're definitely looking at the possibility of a tutorial, even like a smaller map, to basically just sort of teach you the mechanics, teach you how to play. We have ideas for the game that aren't as competitive multiplayer focused. There are more things that we want to explore. Like I don't want to rule anything out. Right now we're focused on multiplayer, but we have a lot of ideas that aren't necessarily of the deathmatch kind of sort that hopefully people will like. And I mean, the more people support the game, the more stuff that we can do with it. So we've definitely thought about that. The world is really cool. We like it. We're excited about it. And the more we can do with it, the happier we'll be, and hopefully everyone else will be happy with it too.
The plan from the beginning, multiplayer only.
Plan
never
from
even
the
thought about a
beginning
campaign?
was multiplayer only. To focus on that, yeah.
Is there anything cool that maybe hasn't been shown off yet in trailers or gameplay out there that you could share?
That you can share.
We can share. There's been some really cool stuff. There hasn't been as much focus, I think, on E3 with the customization that was shown, not like behind closed doors, but sort of off to the side. There's a lot of focus on the actual gameplay, which is great. But I think customization is something that hasn't had as much attention, and I think when people see the depth and what we have in mind for it, what it is going to be is even more robust than what we actually were showing at E3. But I think that gives a glimpse into what we have in mind. So I think that is something that, while not necessarily a secret, I think when people see that and find out more about that, they'll be even more excited about what we're looking at for the game to be.
Cool.
Well, Jason, thanks for coming. But I have a couple questions before you go for our viewers. Are you planning on doing a private beta?
We do have a closed beta. That will be, so our open beta is 12/12/12, and if people go to the website, playhawken.com, they can actually register for the closed beta. And we don't have a specific date for the closed beta, but I think people can probably put two and two together. You know how like it'll be before open beta, but it'll be enough time to it's a real beta. Like
Right.
we want to get it out there. We want to start testing stuff. It isn't like a fake beta. So. So people should keep their eyes open for it. There will be something that's closed and private for sure.
And will you be giving us some codes to give our viewers?
I think we could probably do something with that.
You heard it here. If you don't get
heard it
him,
here.
blame him.
You can come after me. That's, you're allowed.
All right, Jason. Well, thank you for joining us here on Invisible Walls. Good luck finishing the game, and
Thank
we
you.
can't wait for the beta. We'll be on there to match some mechs with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. It's
problem.
awesome to be here.
All right, so next we're going to talk about a game that plays very similar to Portal, but it has an entirely different look and aesthetic. That game is Quantum Conundrum, and I knew I was going to have
QC for the rest of the show.
I knew I was going to have a problem saying that. Somehow I think it's probably not going to sell as well as Portal, just based upon the wrapper alone.
And it's also, it's a DLC game, so it doesn't have that.
But
who
Portal
knows?
kind of started that way. It wasn't its own
Bundled
game really at first.
It was bundled, but
Right.
Steam. Valve can also push whatever they want on Steam really easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, the creative director behind QC was on the original Portal team, so there's that. But I think you can't have a first-person puzzle-solving game where you go through a mad scientist's lair from room to room and not evoke Portal.
I wonder if Valve is a little salty that he kind of went off and kind of took the idea. She went
Yeah.
off and took the idea and used it in another game.
Well,
It's still getting promoted on Steam and everything, so I think I don't think there's any
Hard
bad blood.
feelings.
I can say for almost certain that if there is, it's pretty minimal, because if you pre-order the game, you get Team Fortress 2 items on Steam.
Now, is she the one that came up with the concept? Because
Well, I don't know. The Nabicular Drop team was a handful of people from DigiPen, so I'm not sure if one person per se can take full credit. But I'll also say, if you actually look at Narbicular, I can't even remember. If you look at that and think that this became Portal, it's insane to think about it, because it was like an isometric game with portals, but it's so disconnected from whatever. I'm saying disconnected a lot from what Portal ended up being. But Valve also, it's not just like these guys made Portal. It's like Valve took their talented team and sprinkled in the clever writing,
Sure.
tons of focus tests or tons of testing and whatnot.
But it's built on the concept of portals. That's really
No,
the
it's not.
foundation. I'm saying Portal is.
Yeah,
all the
I'm
other
sorry.
stuff is just set dressing. If you don't have that mechanic, the game is nothing.
But Quantum is all about. But Quantum isn't that. Quantum is still about abilities, but there's no portals in Quantum whatsoever. It's you can make things fluffy and light, super heavy. You can slow down time, and you can reverse gravity. And any one of those things by themselves is not anything particularly mind-blowing. And the game does a pretty good job of making sure things, like they introduce one at a time, and does a good job of making sure they get intermingled or commingled fairly early on, even though I think it takes quite a while to finally get to the gravity. So you are they call them dimensions. You are switching between the dimensions to solve all these puzzles. But the puzzles themselves, you kind of see the bag of tricks, I think, kind of early on. Like when you throw something that's heavy and you throw it while it's fluffy, and then you go to slow-mo so you can jump on it and ride it. It's pretty cool the first time you do it,
Yeah.
but you're going to be doing that a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of puzzles. There's like 51, I think, officially, but the puzzles are multi-tiered, so it seems like a lot of puzzles.
Are the puzzles basically defined by rooms?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And then there's the story's forgettable. Your uncle is your nephew or niece.
It doesn't matter.
he says some jokes, but he's no GLaDOS. It's
Yeah.
hard not to draw the comparisons. He gives you some hints sometimes, which is kind of weird because it made some of the more trickier puzzles easier. And I felt like all the puzzles were fun to solve. None of the puzzles were duds, but I felt very few actually stood out. There was a handful of puzzles where there's a little battery, and what's plugged into the battery is which dimensions you can access. And there's a handful of puzzles where you actually have to choose which powers you have access to.
Oh.
And that kind of opened up things. But for the most part, you're given a limited set of tools, and you have to work with what you have, so you can just bang your head against the wall and solve it. The physics are good, but I can only think of maybe one puzzle off the top of my head where how physics really work beyond a baseline level of things that are heavy drop fast and things that are,
Right.
There's one puzzle where physics got really clever. I think we were talking about before in between recording that the aesthetic kind of has this kind of a Saturday morning kind of plasticky,
Yeah,
a little saccharine feel.
It kind of harkens back almost to when perhaps we were kids, with the exception of Chris, because he still is one. But but if you look at like the 70s and the early 80s, and you'd have these
Ruby Spears animation.
yeah, you'd have this really almost Hanna-Barbera feel to it.
You picked your side.
And okay, Ruby Roo. But I think that's actually a smart thing, because Portal's cool. Portal is an incredibly funny and well-written game. Portal does have this kind of vicious undertone.
Oh, it does.
All the way
it's
through.
dark.
Whereas QC is, again, $15, downloadable game. It feels like it's aimed at a younger generation. I don't have a problem with that. It's actually, for somebody like me, it appeals to me because it takes me back to when I was a little kid and I was watching this stuff and watching these educational shows where it's like, and if we take this this thing and drop it.
But you've only played a little bit of it. The problem is
I played the one level that they had on the show at GDC.
the problem is the game pretty much it doesn't have it's a smaller team. There's not so much to it. You go to the rooms, you see the same couches, the same sofas. There's a little beaker bird that hits a button. It's funny, but by the end of the game, they've introduced a couple of other little elements. It all starts to look the same as well. So the puzzles, they get rearranged. It's kind of like some remixed stuff. There's a lot of puzzles, but the solutions start to feel a little similar, and everything starts to feel a little similar. So it goes a little gray. And then the end game, I thought it was going to pick up a little bit without spoiling anything, but it ends up being pretty short and not anything too spectacular. Nothing like when you played Portal 1 and the last puzzle is basically completely ripping down the Wizard of Oz robe, or curtain, and being bamboozled. And it's I feel like you kind of have to evoke Portal because it's so much like it, but it's its own game as well. And as you said, it's $15. There's a ton of puzzles. None of the puzzles are bad.
No.
There's
Could
a
kids
couple
play
collectibles.
this? Would a kid be able to get through this?
When the game premiered and they showed the very first puzzle, I'm like, this looks impossible. I would say the game's very, very approachable. I think anyone maybe 10 or up, you play with it. The game does a good job of introducing things. The tutorials aren't boring, which is always a plus for this sort of thing. I think a kid, like I said, for the most part, most things you can get through if you just kind of stare at it for a while and think about what is at your disposal.
I think if you're perhaps intimidated by Portal and Portal 2, this is a nice alternative, because there are sections of Portal 2. I sat there looking at the screen for like 10, 15 minutes, like, what the hell am I going to do? And I just go onto Wikipedia.
Yeah, I mean,
You should try reviewing the game when you and two other people are playing it, and you don't communicate with them. You have to figure it out.
But
all on
even
your own.
even speaking of Portal 2, which Portal 2 is way longer than Portal 1, like the gels that affected things, I still don't think those did not hold a candle to the portals themselves.
you're right.
So getting that hook. And Quantum does it by giving you kind of the gestalt of all these 4 abilities, but there's still nothing individual. It really just stands there.
All right, that's it for today's show. Before we go, I want to remind you again, make sure you come back on Wednesday to check out the new site. And number 2, Marcus Beer.
Number 2.
Exactly. Number 2. Marcus Beer is going to start doing his own thing here on GT. Hopefully you guys all watched Annoyed Gamer's Worst of E3 2012. A lot of you guys loved that. We're going to be giving you more of that. He's going to have his own weekly show. Probably still a few weeks out, but just kind of wanted to tease it now. We're working on it, so look for Marcus's new show coming soon. And everybody have themselves an awesome weekend. Play as many games as you can.
Summer's here.
So play as many games as you can. We'll see you all next week. Invisible Walls is up and out.